I gently rocked my 7-month-old son, Eli, as I stood by the window overlooking San Francisco. The first light of day poured over the horizon like a blessing. In my arms, he slept good, warm, and light like a dream. Every tiny breath of it seemed to penetrate my skin, and my heart was filled with a feeling that was both sacred and fragile. Eli, I will always protect you, no matter what. I whispered that sentence like an oath, without witnesses, without echoes, just me and my child, in the strangely quiet space of a weekend morning. I am a pediatric nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. My job gives me a unique perspective on life and motherhood, where every moment is a struggle between life and death, hope and reality. My husband Jacob is a renewable energy consultant, calm, rational, and always listening. We are not rich, not famous, but we have a home that I cherish more than anything. From the kitchen, the coffee maker started to hum. Jacob was making breakfast, his weekend routine. He wasn't perfect, but he was patient and caring enough to make me feel like I wasn't alone in my journey to motherhood. However, what never makes me feel at ease is his family. Anna, my mom just called. She wants to stop by this afternoon, Jacob said as he poured coffee, his voice light as if he were talking about the weather forecast. I said nothing, just let out a soft sigh. Evelyn, my mother-in-law, was a clever woman who knew how to make people feel small without using a single rude word. She loved to crochet and do crafts, and never came to visit without bringing a homemade gift. But I had been a daughter-in-law long enough to know that behind that sweet veneer was a subtle control and a quiet, persistent mental pressure. Olivia will be coming too, Jacob added, almost gliding over an incoming storm. Olivia, Jacob's older sister, is an exaggerated version of his mother, elegant, sharp, and always accidentally saying things that make others feel inferior. I still remember the time she said in front of the whole family, "It's okay, sister. Not everyone is born to be a mother." I didn't react at the time, but that sentence still lingers somewhere in my memory, like a thorn, not painful, just a slight cut. Evelyn was no slouch either. She once gave me a sweater she'd knitted for Eli, with one sleeve twice as long as the other. When I looked at it in confusion, she just smiled. Perhaps you are not familiar with traditional beauty. I don't know if she meant it or not, but the imperfections in that gift carried a silent judgment, as if I was someone who could never get anything right. That afternoon, at exactly 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang, exactly as if programmed. I took a deep breath, forced a smile, and opened the door. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Olivia." Evelyn stood there in her deep pink evening gown, carrying a handmade leather bag with embroidered flowers, something I knew she had made and would mention in a moment. Olivia followed, her hair slicked back, expensive perfume wafting from her feet. "Anna, how have you been? Where's Eli?" Evelyn asked as soon as she entered the house, her eyes already scanning the hallway leading to the living room. "She just woke up, playing with Jacob," I replied. Evelyn's face lit up as she entered. She rushed to hug Eli as if he were the only light in her life. "Oh my gosh, there's my baby." I stood there watching. There was something in her eyes, possession, as if I was just a vessel and Eli was my only value. After a few small talks, Evelyn opened her bag and took out a gift package simply wrapped in patterned newspaper. "I made this for Eli. It's a blanket. The fabric is very special. I think you'll like it." I took it. The package was light and square. When I opened it, there was a light blue blanket with a hand-embroidered border. I touched it. The fabric was thick, but there were some stiff spots, like it was starched or had something stuck to it that hadn't been washed thoroughly. I didn't say anything, just smiled. "Thank you, Mom. I appreciate it. I hope you use it often. The fabric is special," Evelyn said, her cold gaze sweeping over me like a velvet-wrapped knife. Olivia chuckled. It looks a bit rough, but it definitely suits you. I folded the blanket, trying to keep my expression straight. While we were both busy talking to Eli, I quietly put the blanket away at the bottom of the closet, under a pile of old things I rarely touched. After that stifling afternoon of hospitality, I kept thinking about the blanket, even though it was tucked away in the back of the closet. Every time Evelyn came to visit, she would ask, "Have you used the blanket Mom made? Does Eli like it?" I always answer ambiguously, "Yes, I haven't had the chance, but I really like it." Every time, Evelyn would smile slightly, nodding as if she knew something I didn't. Olivia would just casually glance over me as if she were evaluating a low-quality item. 7 o'clock at night. Eli lay still in my arms, the light from the nightlight falling on his rosy cheeks. Jacob sat beside him, unblinking, watching him as if searching for some sign. I still can't believe it. That blanket. I placed my hand gently on his arm. We'll do what needs to be done, one step at a time. I drove Eli to St. Mary's Pediatric Outpatient Clinic that night, with no apparent symptoms. There was no panic in me, just determination and vigilance. Natalie met us in the lobby and led us straight into the examination room. After examining Eli and taking a blood sample, she pulled me into the next room. I have reported it to the Safety Management Department. The blanket needs to be sealed and sent for testing. I also reported the suspected origin of the material related to medical waste from Riverside Hospital. They will take it seriously. I nodded. A heavy feeling rose in my stomach, not from fear, but from knowing the consequences. That night, I lay awake, not because Eli was bothering me, but because my heart was aching with one question. What if she knew the blanket's origin? The next morning, while I was still completing the sample check with infection control, Jacob called. His voice was as tense as a bowstring. I just called my mom. She said it was a joke, told me not to overdo it. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. If she knew it was medical waste and gave it to you anyway, this is more than a joke, Jacob. This is dangerous behavior, and possibly criminal. I know, he replied. His voice was no longer hesitant. I'm going to see her. Now. Jacob told me later that when he got to his mother's house, Olivia was there, her toenails meticulously painted, her face impassive as if the world were under her shoes. Evelyn opened the door, her eyes filled with surprise and confusion when she saw her son appear without warning. Jacob? Why is your face so serious? What's wrong? The blanket Mom gave Eli. It has a fabric code from Riverside Hospital. It was used in the respiratory isolation ward. Did you know that? Mrs. Evelyn was confused for a moment, but recovered her composure with surprising rapidity. She gestured for him to come in and drew him into the living room. Come in. Don't make a fuss at the door. Mom, tell me clearly. Do you know the origin of that fabric? Olivia looked up from her nail polish. Oh my God, is it the blanket thing again? I didn't expect my sister-in-law to be so perceptive. Mom and I were just betting on whether she would notice. Who would have thought she would be so observant? Jacob turned to look at his sister, as if seeing her for the first time. You bet your nephew's life? Evelyn crossed her arms, her voice cold. Hospital materials are usually sterilized before disposal. They won't kill you. It's just a joke. Jacob gasped. Mom, where did you get the cloth? She did not answer. Olivia interrupted. It was from an old acquaintance of Mom's, Uncle Paul. He used to work as a janitor in Riverside. He collected leftover fabric and gave it to Mom to make crafts. Jacob was stunned. So you know this is medical fabric? Evelyn looked at her son, not answering immediately. Finally, she sighed. I knew it was from the hospital, but I didn't think it was dirty. I just couldn't stand Anna thinking she was better than me, looking down on my experience. Jacob took a step back, feeling a sense of loss. He remembered his childhood, his mother's pranks, putting pepper in crackers, hiding things from friends, laughing at the panic of others. It had seemed mischievous then. Now it felt creepy. You know, Mom? Anna suspected. But she didn't report it. She was just waiting for evidence. And you? You did this on purpose. Not because you love me, but because you want to bring down your daughter-in-law. No one answered. This isn't family anymore, Mom. This is Eli's health and a legal investigation. That afternoon, I got a call from the safety manager. The blanket fabric sample contained high levels of formaldehyde residue, traces of unidentified dried blood, and a confirmation that the code matched a Riverside medical waste batch from 2 years ago. When I told Jacob the news, he just nodded. There was a long silence. Finally, he said, "We will report the incident, and from now on, I am on your side. Not because you are my wife, but because you were right from the beginning." Jacob and I sat side by side in the small safety control office. On the table was the envelope containing the fabric analysis report. The numbers and chemical names were no longer theoretical, but evidence of a grown-up mistake. The formaldehyde is 3 times the safe exposure level for infants, I said, my hand tightening on the ginger tea. It won't have an immediate effect, but there's still a risk. And there's some unidentified dried blood. Jacob was silent. His eyes were slightly puffy from lack of sleep. "We need a lawyer," I said, forcing myself to admit it out loud for the first time. Not for revenge, to protect Eli. 3 days later, Jennifer Cohen, a lawyer referred by the hospital, came to our home. She was young, trim, and to the point. "You have 2 options, civil and criminal. Civil if you want to recover. Criminal if there is evidence that Evelyn knowingly used hazardous materials from the health system and knew the risks." Jacob shook his head. "I don't want my mom to go to jail. I need her to understand the consequences and take responsibility." Jennifer nodded. "Then we will coordinate with the hospital and organize a family dialogue with a third-party witness." That afternoon, the sky was ominously overcast. We drove to Jacob's mother's house, without Eli. I had sent him back to Palo Alto, where my parents were taking care of him for a few days. As I got out of the car, I saw 5 cars parked side by side along the driveway. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and even Aunt Joan from Sacramento. "Ready?" Jacob asked, his voice even and deep. "No," I said, "but I won't run away." The living room was crowded but silent. Evelyn sat huddled in a corner, Olivia beside her, not wearing her usual flashy makeup, just a plain dress and a face that couldn't hide her tension. Jennifer begins, "We are not here today to criticize, but to clarify and protect the child in this story. We hope that all family members can speak the truth and listen truthfully." Evelyn took a deep breath. "I know. People think I'm cruel, but I didn't mean to hurt Eli. I just feel left out. Ever since Anna came, I feel like I have no place in this family." No one said anything. Jacob looked straight at his mother. "No one left me out. I chose to compete with my wife and children. And this time, by doing something that could put my grandchild in the hospital. I didn't know the cloth was so dangerous. Uncle Paul gave me a big bag. He said it was clean cloth, from the hospital, but bleached." I spoke, my voice calm but clear. "I did the testing. There was excess formaldehyde. There were biological traces. There were internal medical codes. And there was a potential risk." Evelyn bowed her head. No one laughed. No one cried. The air seemed thick. Just then, Aunt Joan, Evelyn's sister stood up. Enough. Sister Evelyn, if you don't say it, I will. The whole room turned to her. This is not the first time you have played games that cross the line. I kept quiet when you mixed laxatives into your colleague's water just for fun. I kept quiet when you were warned for cutting the wrong medical waste classification label to get beautiful fabric for knitting. Jacob was stunned. Auntie, are you serious? Your father didn't leave the family for work, Aunt Joan said, tears welling in her eyes. He left after he found out your mother had been using old medical supplies to make household items and refused to stop. He used to say, "One day Evelyn won't be able to stop." Evelyn burst into tears. For the first time, I saw her as a shadow, small, trembling, and naked, before the people she had tried to control. I just wanted to be acknowledged. I didn't expect things to go this far. I am no longer angry, just sad and sorry. Maybe she didn't really understand the consequences, or had lived too long in a cycle of self-pity and denial. Jennifer spoke up. From a legal perspective, the family has the right to request mandatory psychological treatment, supervision in interactions with the child, and cooperation with the hospital in investigating the source of the leaked medical material. Jacob turned to me, taking my hand. We ask that, not to punish you, but to keep you safe. I nodded. And to close a vicious cycle that too many in this house have been silent about for too long. A month after the family conversation, Eli was still healthy. Blood tests and biomarkers were all within safe limits. There are no signs of cumulative toxicity, but regular monitoring is needed for the next 6 months, Natalie said as she handed me the results. I held the paper, my heart as light as if I had just placed it on a rock. Eli was lying in my arms, sucking his finger and smiling foolishly. You have no idea what you just went through, I whispered. Throughout the month, Jacob went to family therapy with me. Neither of us visited Evelyn, a necessary retreat, but each week, a social worker sent us a report. Evelyn was attending therapy, learning about boundaries and behavior control, and had started a family trauma support group. We don't call, we don't text. We're each healing in our own way. 3 months later. My belly was already bulging. My second child, the fruit of that tumultuous year, kicked gently into my arms as I put on some soft music. Are you telling me to move on? I smiled, pressing my cheek against hers. Jacob was arranging flowers in the garden, preparing for Eli's first birthday. The atmosphere wasn't exactly joyful, but peaceful enough that I felt like I was no longer living in doubt. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. My parents arrived first, hugging Eli and me, bringing a homemade cake, then a few close friends, then Evelyn. She walked into the backyard, walking slowly. Beside her was Caitlin, the social worker. Evelyn wore no makeup, no flashy clothes, just a beige cardigan, and in her hand she held a gift wrapped in craft paper, neatly written. For Eli, first birthday. The air froze for a few seconds as I stepped out to greet her. Hello, I said, my voice calm, neither resentful nor condescending. Hello, Anna, she replied, her eyes steady, not avoiding mine. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm learning to understand and to make amends. I received the gift. It was a small teddy bear, made of soft cotton, with even seams, and inside there was a certificate from the supplier of safe materials. I learned to sew in therapy class, she said, calling herself a mom, not I. Not to make up for it, but to start over, in a measured way. I nodded, said nothing more, but I didn't dodge. A moment later, Olivia appeared. No more strong perfume, no more high heels. She wore a linen dress and carried a tray of fresh milk biscuits. When she saw me, she slowed her pace. Anna, she said, I don't expect you to forget what I said, but if you need any help today, I'm here. I nodded slightly. I didn't smile, but I didn't turn away. The party was light-hearted. Children ran around, adults sat and talked softly. Jacob put Eli in his high chair and placed the blue dinosaur birthday cake in front of him. Eli looked around, laughing as if it were all a fun game. I stood at a distance looking in. My eyes met Jacob's. Last year, I was so scared I couldn't trust my instincts, I said. This year, I know when to speak up. Jacob took my hand, squeezed it gently. You saved my child, and saved this whole family from a vicious cycle that no one dares to name. I nodded. And this time, I'm standing by your side. He looked at me, silent. But his eyes said it all. When the party was over, I was washing glasses in the kitchen and saw Evelyn standing in the doorway, hesitating. There was no one else. She looked at me. Anna, she said, I am grateful for today, and if it is all right, I would like to ask permission, after 6 months, to reconsider seeing Eli more regularly, with both of your consent. I looked at her for a long time, not harshly, not coldly. That would depend on your progress, and for my child's safety. But thanks for asking. She nodded. No protest, no reaction, just nod. That evening, after everyone had left, Jacob and I sat together on the porch. The wind blew gently through the jasmine trees. The first moon was hidden behind the clouds. Do you think you can forgive her? Jacob asked. I thought for a moment. I don't think I need to forgive right away, but I also don't want to hold on to anger forever. I'll let time do the rest. I put my hand on my belly. I felt the kick of my second child, a reminder that life was still moving forward, despite all the brokenness behind it. I stood by Eli's window, watching him sleep in the soft yellow light of the night lamp. The April breeze blew gently through the curtains, carrying the scent of jasmine from the backyard. In my hands was a new blanket, not the one that had haunted me, but one I had made myself. Each piece of fabric carefully chosen, each seam mended after each mistake. The old blanket that unleashed the storm remains sealed at the hospital. It is no longer a threat. It is evidence. It is a reminder. There are things that should never come back, but don't need to be buried either. I thought of Evelyn, of the trembling eyes on Eli's birthday, of the timid steps she had never known before. I think about Olivia. She hasn't apologized a second time, but she doesn't need to. The real apology isn't in the mouth, it's in choosing to live differently, every day. I think of Jacob, the man who once thought family was immutable, now learned to draw the line. The man who once stood in between, now chose to stand on either side together. Not because I'm right, but because you know what's right. I think about myself. A year ago, I was just a young mother, struggling to find the balance between reason and emotion, between instinct and responsibility. Now I know. Maternal instinct is never a sentiment to be suppressed, but an alarm bell when everyone else is silent. I am not a hero. I'm just someone who has decided not to ignore my intuition, and sometimes just that is enough. I sat down by her bed and gently pulled the new blanket over her. A messy stitch in the right corner, the only mistake I hadn't fixed yet. I didn't cover it up. I left it there as part of the truth, that no repair is perfect. But if you are brave enough to look at the tears, we can still sew everything back together from scratch.